you read in the newspapers or you hear on the web that, of course, there will have been, people would have been prepared for this.
In a surprising turn of events, Princess Anne is said to have blocked Queen Camilla from joining the meetings for Prince William's coronation ceremony. Inside the palace, tensions have grown so high that the royal family is now dealing with a serious split, one that could shake the carefully maintained order of the monarchy. But what made Anne take such a strong step? Is there a rift between her and Camilla? Let's explore Princess Anne's unexpected move to keep Camilla out of Prince William's coronation preparations. Camilla's shocking exclusion from the royal circle. Despite centuries of tradition, strict rules and rituals practiced with painstaking care, the royal family had never truly been prepared for this moment. What should have been a smooth and united transition of power, with Prince William stepping forward confidently backed by the entire institution, slowly turned into something far more dangerous. A quiet, invisible war inside the family. Loyalties were split, resistance was silent, and calculated moves were made behind locked doors, away from public view. Then came the shock that no one expected. Princess Anne, known for decades as the most disciplined, dutiful, and steadfast member of the family, made a move that stunned even the most experienced palace insiders. Instead of offering her support as everyone anticipated, she used her authority to halt progress in its tracks. She didn't shout. She didn't make a public announcement. She simply stopped the process, and she did it with the precision of a surgeon. Queen Consort Camilla found herself quietly cut out. She was completely left out of the earliest planning meetings and discussions about the next crown. This was no accident. No tiny oversight. Palace aides later revealed that for weeks, invitations, confidential briefings, and critical strategy meetings had been circulating. But Camilla's name was never on a single one, not once. What made the maneuver even more striking was how cleanly it was executed. William's closest advisors acted quickly and decisively, clearly following Princess Anne's lead. Every important document, every private conversation, every foundational decision connected to the future coronation stayed within a tightly controlled inner circle, an inner circle that answered only to Anne and William. Camilla did not learn about this exclusion through an official announcement. She discovered it by chance. Members of her own staff reportedly asked why she had not received a key planning memo, one that should have automatically gone to her. That was the moment she could no longer ignore what was happening. The emotional impact was immediate and intense. Inside Clarence's house, sources say Camilla felt completely blindsided. It wasn't just shock, it was a profound sense of betrayal, not only by Princess Anne, but by the entire royal system she had believed she was finally a part of. And yet, true to centuries-old palace tradition, she said nothing. No protest, no correction, no public response. But inside the palace, the message was unmistakable. This was no mistake. No scheduling error. It was deliberate. The firm had drawn a clear line, and Camilla was standing firmly on the wrong side of it. Some insiders claim Princess Anne acted purely out of loyalty to William, trying to shield him from internal conflict and long-standing tensions. Others believe the move reflected a much deeper struggle, a battle over legacy, influence, and who truly controls the monarchy when the future is being decided. As the story quietly spread, speculation exploded. Whatever the real motivation, one thing was clear. The palace atmosphere had shifted dramatically. Without a single public word, Camilla had been told her role was no longer essential, perhaps not even welcome. And in making that bold statement, Princess Anne may have triggered a turning point in the history of the royal family. Was this a pushback against Camilla's rising public profile and her quiet sway behind the scenes? Had Princess Anne finally reached her limit with Camilla's expanding influence? Let's take a closer look. Anne's quiet resistance to Camilla. Inside the royal family, Princess Anne has always been seen as the unshakable pillar holding the monarchy together, the steady, immovable force that ensures everything stays upright. She is known for her iron discipline, her deep respect for centuries-old traditions, and a life of service carried out quietly, without seeking attention or stirring personal drama. Anne does not chase the cameras or seek headlines, yet when she makes a move, the palace watches closely. Beneath her calm and controlled exterior, however, a long-building tension simmers. one that few outside the innermost circle fully understand. At the heart of that tension is Camilla. From the very first moments when Charles and Camilla began appearing in public as a couple, Anne never let herself soften toward her. Over the years, as Camilla rose from being widely criticized to becoming queen consort, Anne's stance remained the same: cool, distant, precise, and measured. While other senior royals made obvious efforts to welcome Camilla into the family, Anne confined herself strictly to what was required by protocol. There were no warm gestures, no joint projects, no signs of genuine closeness, only polite acknowledgement, and nothing more. Her distance was never about jealousy or personal dislike. It was about principle. Anne has always believed in rank, duty, and the idea that respect and status must be earned through long years of service, not crafted through public sympathy or carefully polished image management. To her, Camilla's rise, propelled by marriage and a carefully curated public redemption, felt unearned. One palace insider recalled a private moment after an event at Balmoral, when Anne quietly told a trusted confidant, "Some people wear the crown for duty, others wear it for appearance." She did not name anyone, but the meaning was clear. When Charles became king, Anne's unease grew. Camilla's influence seemed to expand at an astonishing pace. She became more involved in protocol decisions, more assertive at public events, and increasingly confident in shaping how she was perceived within the royal structure. To Anne, this was not confidence, it was overstepping. It felt like Camilla was trying to rewrite her own role in the monarchy instead of accepting the limits set by tradition. The tension was not just visible in public. Behind closed doors, it reportedly surfaced during at least 2 major state occasions. Palace aides claim Anne intervened when Camilla attempted to take the lead in ceremonial matters. One particularly sharp incident took place at a diplomatic reception, where Anne is said to have interrupted Camilla mid-conversation with a foreign diplomat, calmly but firmly taking over the exchange herself. It was not an act of rivalry. In Anne's view, it was a necessary correction, a way to maintain order. Privately, Anne began speaking to Prince William. She warned him that Camilla's increasing assertiveness was starting to blur the line between symbolic support and real influence. Anne feared that if this continued unchecked, it could upset the delicate balance of authority that allows the monarchy to function smoothly. Her worry was not personal, it was structural. She believed the institution itself was at risk. According to insiders, these warnings marked a quiet turning point. Though never officially confirmed, many now believe Anne's conversations with William planted the earliest seeds that led to Camilla having a reduced role in coronation planning. This was not about punishment, it was about protection. Anne did not see Camilla's growing presence as strengthening the throne. She saw it as a potential threat. With William preparing for a future already heavy with public scrutiny and modern pressures, Anne made a careful, calculated choice. She acted quietly, decisively, and without fanfare, shielding the monarchy through silent resistance rather than open confrontation. But what Anne sensed approaching, William may have already feared. A source close to the Prince of Wales revealed that a private meeting between William and Camilla just weeks ago changed everything. In that confidential discussion, the future king reportedly drew a firm line about roles and influence, only to face not understanding, but cold defiance. Could there have been a silent rift within the royal family? Let's find out. The hidden conflict between William and Camilla. The tension between Prince William and Camilla had been growing slowly, almost invisibly, for a long time. It wasn't sudden, and it didn't erupt in loud arguments. Instead, it lingered quietly, hiding in pauses that lasted a little too long, in polite smiles that never reached the eyes, and in small moments that felt off but were never spoken aloud. Yet all of that quiet discomfort eventually boiled over during a private meeting at Clarence House, a meeting that was supposed to clear the air but instead revealed just how wide the gap between them had become. In public, William had always appeared calm, respectful, and measured. He performed his role flawlessly, the picture of patience and dignity. But behind closed doors, the pressure was building. He had been watching Camilla take increasingly visible roles in ceremonies, speak with more authority, and insert herself into moments that, in William's view, should belong to the future of the monarchy, not its past. What had started as a private unease had grown into something much more serious. To William, this was no longer about feelings, it was about the structure of the monarchy, the order of power, and the future crown itself. When William requested the meeting, he approached it not as a stepson, or even simply as a family member, but as the Prince of Wales preparing for the day he would become king. His goal was clear. He wanted a calm, measured conversation about boundaries, a respectful appeal for space. What he got instead was a silent confrontation of wills. Sources familiar with the meeting said that William spoke directly, but with courtesy. He explained that, with coronation planning now underway, he needed room to shape his reign, to lead, to define the meaning of his future as king without feeling overshadowed. He told Camilla that her presence, once necessary and understandable, was starting to feel intrusive. He requested that she step back from key planning meetings, particularly those concerning symbolic and ceremonial decisions that would define his future rule. There were no accusations, no shouting, no attempt to humiliate. It was a restrained, polite request. Camilla, however, did not take it that way. She smiled, but the smile was sharp, edged with subtle dismissal. With a tone that mixed amusement and indifference, she said, "It's all symbolic tradition, darling. Nothing more." To William, those words were not casual. They were a refusal to acknowledge the gravity of his role and the shifting moment in history, a denial that the future crown no longer belonged to her. Something inside him finally broke. Breaking from his usual self-control, William replied firmly, a sentence that insiders say still echoes through palace halls. "This is not your crown to shape." The words landed hard and final. There was no shouting afterward, no drawn-out argument, only silence, a heavy, tense pause. Then William stood and left the room, not waiting for her reply. His decision had already been made. The very next day, he met privately with Princess Anne. The timing was intentional. His conversation with Camilla had made everything clear. This was no longer a matter of personal discomfort. It was about authority, public perception, and the long-term legacy of the monarchy. Anne agreed immediately. Together they decided that Camilla would be excluded from all further coronation planning. They did not inform her right away. The approach was quiet, careful, and deliberate. Meeting agendas were subtly altered. Guest lists were adjusted. Correspondence was rerouted. Planning sessions went on, but without Camilla's name attached. The palace, always governed by unspoken rules and silent cues, adapted quickly and efficiently. This was not rebellion, it was realignment. William had drawn the line. Anne reinforced it. Camilla, however, had never been the type to be pushed aside. When she finally discovered what had happened, her reaction was explosive. Sources say she shouted, "I am queen inside Clarence House." Beneath her fury, however, lay more than wounded pride. There was fear of losing influence, fear of being erased. The truth reached her not through official channels, but accidentally. A small calendar update, a brief note about a coronation planning meeting at Kensington Palace, and her name was missing. At first, her team assumed it was a clerical mistake, but as calls went unanswered and messages were ignored, reality sank in. She had not been forgotten, she had been deliberately excluded. Panic rippled through her inner circle. Advisors urged calm, discretion, and patience. But Camilla's anger overflowed. This was not just one meeting. It was a symbol of her diminishing voice in the matters that mattered most. Fueled by betrayal, she reportedly stormed into a private sitting room where King Charles was reviewing state papers. The doors closed behind her. For several minutes, raised voices echoed through Clarence House, though nothing would ever be officially acknowledged. "They cannot treat me like a guest," she is said to have cried. Charles, caught between his role as husband and his duty as king, offered no clear defense. He did not argue, nor did he intervene. His silence spoke volumes. In that moment, Camilla realized something she had not expected. His loyalty lay with his son. For years, Camilla had carefully navigated her way into the monarchy, reshaping her image with patience, charm, and strategy. But now, the same institution that once protected her had shifted. She was outside the inner circle. Still, retreat was not in her nature. Behind the scenes, she mobilized her team. Quiet management turned into open strategy. Ideas emerged, exclusive interviews, discreet leaks, carefully timed appearances, all intended to remind the public of her presence and importance. The goal was not to expose the fracture, but to reclaim influence within it. Yet no matter how she maneuvered, the truth was unavoidable. William's coronation plans moved forward without her. Alliances solidified, decisions were made, and the story that once included her was being rewritten. The blow was not only personal, it was strategic. In the world of royal power, visibility is everything. And for the first time since becoming queen beside Charles, Camilla watched herself fade from view. Her fight for relevance soon hit another wall. While she struggled, someone else quietly took her place. Catherine, Princess of Wales, stepped forward without drama or resistance. By William's side, she brought calm, clarity, and a vision rooted in public trust. Where Camilla fought to be seen, Catherine represented the future, steady, assured, and aligned with the crown yet to come. In that quiet shift, the balance of power was sealed. Could Catherine be quietly consolidating influence within the monarchy? Let's find out. Catherine's growing influence. As rumors about Camilla being sidelined swirled behind the palace walls, another presence was quietly taking charge. Without speeches, without demands, without any drama. Catherine didn't have to ask for space. She didn't need permission. She simply stepped into it naturally, carrying a calm authority that spoke louder than any words could. While others were pushing, maneuvering, or striving for influence, Catherine allowed hers to grow quietly, steadily, earned through grace, thoughtfulness, and complete focus. Palace staff who were there later recalled that her role in Prince William's early coronation meetings wasn't for show or symbolism. It was essential. From the very first discussions, Catherine was helping to shape not just the details, but the entire mood and meaning of the ceremony. She wasn't interested in following tradition simply because it had always been done that way. She wanted the coronation to feel alive, to connect deeply, to resonate with people, especially a younger generation who were watching closely. It was Catherine who suggested that young people should play a visible role in the procession, giving the future generation a literal presence in the moment. It was Catherine who proposed ways to honor Queen Elizabeth II that respected the past while gently pointing forward, blending legacy with purpose, steady, unshakable, that won over every advisor in the room. Where Camilla's actions had become increasingly noticeable and often openly questioned, Catherine moved with such ease that she met no resistance at all. Her influence wasn't announced. It didn't need to be. People simply felt it. Palace aides described her as deliberate, thoughtful, and completely in step with William. The two didn't operate through titles, rank, or command. They worked as equals. One insider summed it up. Where William brought strength, Catherine brought balance. Together they were quietly shaping the coronation in ways that surprised many inside the palace. There were no headlines marking Catherine's rise, no dramatic announcement, just a steady presence that became impossible to ignore. The palace never officially declared her importance because it didn't have to. The public already sensed it. After years of scandals, tension, and general fatigue with the royal family, people found comfort in Catherine's quiet ascent. She felt grounding, solid, and reassuring, polished without being distant, dutiful without arrogance, elegant without forcing herself into the spotlight. Polls quietly confirmed what advisors had been noticing for some time. The public wasn't reacting to titles or bloodlines. They were responding to something rarer: authenticity. In that authenticity, Catherine was becoming what Camilla had never fully managed to be: a symbol of trust. What made it even more remarkable was that Catherine never tried to replace anyone. She never competed with Camilla. She simply embodied the direction the monarchy was moving toward, and, in some ways, what it had once represented. Behind the palace gates, as power shifted subtly but unmistakably, one truth became clear to those watching closely. The future queen wasn't waiting for a crown. She was already acting like one. But just as William and Catherine's vision began to take shape, a hidden meeting occurred, one that threatened to unravel everything the palace had worked so quietly to manage. In a quiet corner of Windsor, King Charles called Princess Anne for a private conversation. Sources later described the meeting as tense, restrained, and deeply personal. What was said, and what Anne refused to do, had the potential to change the royal family's course entirely. The meeting began politely, but the weight behind it was heavy. Charles, under mounting pressure from Camilla, was trying to regain control. He wanted Anne to reverse the quiet but decisive action that had kept Camilla out of William's coronation planning. For Camilla, it was a humiliation she could not forgive. For Charles, it felt like a crack in the fragile unity he had spent years trying to rebuild. But Anne had not come to Windsor to retreat. She came as she always had, not to protect feelings, but to protect the crown. Charles argued not as a king, but as a husband. He spoke of loyalty, of redemption, of a woman who had endured judgment and believed she had finally earned her place. "She is my wife," he reportedly said, his voice heavy with emotion. It was more than a declaration. It was a plea. But how will this affect Camilla? Could this be the end of her influence? Let's take a closer look. Camilla's dwindling influence. King Charles sat alone, the weight of decades pressing heavily on his shoulders. Time had carved its marks on him, making him painfully aware of what the future might hold. In that moment, the path ahead felt narrow, rigid, and unforgiving. He had not only failed to sway Anne's opinion, he had been forced to face a far harsher truth. His influence, once sweeping and unquestioned, was no longer absolute. The authority he had long relied on had limits now clear and impossible to ignore. Camilla had once been his sanctuary. Through years of public scrutiny, relentless media attention, and private struggles, she had been his anchor. Her steady presence had offered him comfort when the world seemed harsh and unyielding. Yet now, instead of being the glue that held the family together, she had become the very fault line running through it. Silence fell over the room, heavy and uncomfortable, as words dried up and the conversation fizzled. By the end, Charles must have already understood the inevitable. This was a fight he could not win. Anne did not act as a sister concerned for family, or as an ally offering consolation. She was firm, unwavering, like a guard stationed at the gates. Her stance radiated strength and determination. There was no hesitation in her posture, no flicker of regret in her eyes. When the moment ended, she simply rose, offered a brief nod, and left. No final words, no attempt to soften the impact, no gestures toward reconciliation. That was the end. There would be no shared appearances, no carefully staged smiles, no rehearsed displays of unity to reassure the world. The meeting ended, and with it, the illusion that harmony still existed within the palace walls. What followed was not an eruption of anger, but a quiet, simmering storm, a slow, deliberate tension that would unfold behind closed doors, with calculated moves and silent resistance shaping the future of the institution itself. Anne had drawn her line in the sand. William had made his decision, and Charles, even while wearing the crown, began to grasp a painful truth about power in a monarchy. Power is never truly yours. It is borrowed, passed down through tradition, guarded by family loyalty, and reshaped by those who are willing to fight for their vision of what the crown should represent, no matter the cost to personal relationships. As tensions reached their peak, palace aides moved swiftly. A statement was drafted with extreme care. Every word was chosen, every phrase polished. Yet, what the statement left unsaid spoke louder than the carefully constructed sentences themselves. When the palace finally released it, the message said almost nothing. The announcement was calm, concise, and intentionally vague. It downplayed any hint of conflict, presenting a surface of smooth coordination. Released quietly through official royal channels, it mentioned only ongoing cooperation between senior royals in support of the Prince of Wales. No individual names were included. Most notably, Queen Camilla's name was absent entirely. That silence became the story. Royal commentators, analysts, and the media immediately pounced on the language. The repeated focus on support for the Prince of Wales dominated headlines. In royal communication, silence can speak louder than declarations, and Camilla's absence was impossible to ignore. Observers interpreted it as confirmation. The Queen Consort had been sidelined, and no explanation would be forthcoming. Inside the palace, the calm portrayed to the public was only a mask. Behind the doors, tension and urgency ruled. Internal memos circulated rapidly. Remain on message, avoid speculation, do not engage with the press. Staff were instructed to deny knowledge of planning meetings and, most strikingly, to refrain from mentioning Camilla in any coronation-related discussions. Was this the quiet hand of Prince William asserting authority from the shadows? Or had Princess Anne's influence grown so undeniable that even the crown's words now carried her strength and unyielding determination? Let's take a closer look. Princess Anne's royal warning. In a shocking twist, a private letter written by Princess Anne became known. It had been meant for only one person, her brother, King Charles. It was never supposed to be shared with anyone else. But what it revealed struck directly at the core of everything the royal family says it stands for. A few weeks before Camilla was quietly removed from the planning of Prince William's coronation, Anne had taken the unusual step of writing to Charles. That alone raised eyebrows. Even more surprising was the strong emotion behind her words. Although she wrote in her usual calm, formal, and disciplined way, the message carried something much deeper and more troubling. In Anne's view, the monarchy was slowly drifting away from its true purpose. She wrote about the heavy weight of tradition, not only on those carrying it today, but also on the future it is meant to protect. Her words were not driven by jealousy or personal rivalry. They came from real concern. She warned that without clear limits and strong discipline, the monarchy could become what she described as a pageant of contradiction, a place where image becomes more important than meaning, and appearances matter more than duty. Anne never mentioned Camilla directly, but the message was easy to understand. She spoke about the risks of public opinion, and how trust begins to weaken when private relationships seem more important than responsibility to the nation. Her tone was firm, direct, and unapologetic. She described William as the last strong pillar who combines respect for tradition with forward thinking. That was a powerful statement. It showed not only her trust in him, but also her belief that the future of the crown now depends on his decisions. She urged Charles to step back, not as a brother listening to his sister, but as a king sworn to protect the monarchy above all else. Letting go, she argued, might hurt. But in her view, it was necessary if the monarchy was to survive. What do you think about Princess Anne's treatment towards Camilla? Share your thoughts with us in the comments section. Don't forget to like and subscribe.